Twilightus. We are so excited to bring you a guy who says he's just a guy from Ohio. Our dear friend, Mr. George Stimson. He is primarily known as the force behind Peace and Hall Press, who, of course, published his wonderful book, Goodbye, Helter Skelter, which disassembles the Helter Skelter narrative that has been foisted off and is still being fed to us currently. We appreciate you for that. And of course, the wonderful Lynn Fromey book, Reflections. George, thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me again.
And today I want to ask you about some things that maybe not a lot of people know about, which are the more intimate spaces and influences on Charles Manson, who became a fairly good friend of yours through a number of years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That being accurate?
Yeah, he was a good friend of mine. Yeah, definitely. I hope.
So, don't we all, you love somebody, but, the way they feel about you is kind of none of your business.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's a hard thing for people to accept. But you seem to have followed a trail of his, if you will. And as a Californian and a person who's lived a great deal of my life amongst some of the landmarks that were his trail, you couldn't have had some more spectacular places to visit. Now, could you share some of those with us and how that affected you, please?
Well, I think when you're looking into anything, it's really important if you can go to a place where things happen, because sometimes things that seem odd to you will become readily apparent when you get there. A friend of mine, just for example, was a true crime writer, was interested in the Lindbergh kidnapping, and he finally got into the Hopewell house, and he said, when you get in there, you see what happened, because when you're reading it in a book, you can't really tell the layout of the rooms or whatever. So I wanted to go to all the places associated with this case. And of course, the Barker Ranch was an important place. It sounded mysterious and exotic, and I wanted to get out there. So I did some research and got out there. And the first time was April of 1980.
Wow.
Back then, the only thing,
11 years after their incarceration, that was, wow. You think about how fresh that is now. That sounds like the night after.
Well, there were still pieces of the bus out there. There was still the same curtain hanging in the bathroom that are in the Pictures in Life magazine. There was all sorts of stuff out there. The bus was freshly gone, but there were bits and pieces of it lying around that you could pick up. But so I went out there the first time. I just went with a friend of mine, and we'd been laid off from our jobs in San Diego and drove it there. We parked at the bottom of the washer in the Volkswagen because we didn't think we could drive up. They said it was so terrible.
Right.
And we walked all the way up and said we could have driven up here. But we spent the first night in the Newman cabin, and the next day we got up there and took a wrong turn. And I said, this isn't, I had a topo map, but back then, there was no GPS and nobody had four-wheel drive. So all we had was a copy of Helter Skelter and a topo map. And so I said, this canyon we're going up is not what this topo map is showing. Let me go up on this ridge and see if I can find out where we are. And I went up on the ridge, and I could see Barker Ranch and Myers Ranch. It was like looking,
at the picture.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So that must have just been a revelation. Exciting as hell.
And a burro was running by the front gate of Barker Ranch braying. Wow. So I said, this is it. We went down.
Yeah, like exactly. Crazy. Yeah.
So we went down and checked it out. Spent the afternoon there, and I couldn't believe,
how intact it was.
How neat the place was. It was intact. It was. I thought, when we were out there, there'd be some foundation walls or something. But the place was basically intact. There were trees. There was water. It was habitable. I said, somebody could live here. I would like to live here. Yeah. It was beautiful. There were trees. It was quiet. There were animals.
Well, a lot of people don't understand the way that valley sits. In the evening at that golden hour, it's very beautiful, but the way the air moves, it cools there sooner than other places in Death Valley. It's one of the quickest places to cool off, the way the air moves, and it's so literally refreshing. We've had this exciting hot day in the desert. This cleansing wind comes. It feels amazing there. And then in the evening, I just love the way the breezes play at night.
Yeah,
Now,
it was really a beautiful place to
so
be.
you felt enchanted. Did you spend
also,
the night there?
Not that night. No,
Okay.
we had to go back, and it was a while before I got back up there. I went. That would have been 78 or no, 1980, excuse me, when we got laid off in San Diego.
Wow.
I didn't get back up there until the following year when I was living in Death Valley. By then, I had a motorcycle. I took it up through Mingle Pass.
Wow.
And over the Mingle Pass.
The long way.
Yeah. And I spent the night there then. But I'd been up a couple of times with some other people because once people found out I knew where it was, they wanted me to take them out there. So they go, "Oh, hey, can you take us out to Barker Ranch?" Sure, if you're driving, you bet. You know, you'll be to death. I'll go.
I love that. You want to maintain a four-wheel drive vehicle for the rest of your life? Oh, right up there.
It's your flat tire.
I'll be standing here while you fix it. So anyway, I did that for a while, and I used to, when I moved back to Ohio, I was a house painter, so I got laid off in the winter time. So I had a VW bus, and I drove it out to LA and spent 3 or 4 weeks out there and visited old friends in Death Valley and people I knew in LA. And then I'd go back, and I would go up to Barker Ranch or go up to Butte Valley and stay in the Stone House or the Anderson cabin. So then I was doing that for a while, and I made the acquaintance of Sandra Good Blue, and she said, "Well, I'm going out to California when I get out of off parole. Would you take me up to Barker Ranch since you go there all the time?" And I said, "Well,
Wow.
sure, I'll do that." And so we went out there, and it was very nice. We stayed like I think 3.5 weeks, and we ran out of food and had to go. But
That's amazing.
It was like it was raining, and it was winter time, and wind was blowing. And I said, if we fix these windows up, we could stay here, and it'd be nice, So we started fixing little windows, and we lived in Hanford, which was only 5 hours away, and we knew people in Trona, so we could always visit them. And so we would start coming out maybe every 3 or 4 weeks, and started replacing windows, and we did so many things to that. I really have to stop and think of all the repairs we did on the house, fixed the roof, rebuilt the stone walls.
So you brought all these materials up on various trips. Like how many trips up, and what was your method of movement?
I had a 92 Toyota pickup, 4-wheel drive. And like I say, we went out there every 2 or 3 weeks because the Hanford water is no good. So we would drink water from Sourdough Springs. We'd go out and fill up a bunch of 5-gallon jugs. And it got to the point where we were taking things out like firewood and stashing it by the time we got a stove installed in the house. But, we installed stoves, windows, doors, rebuilt walls. We rebuilt all the walls in the bunkhouse. There was always irrigation things you had to do. You had to fix it. I dug up more pipes there and relayed them and ran things here and there to get the water flowing to places. And, just all sorts of things. I replaced the gate. I replaced the front door of the house, all the doors on the place. We'd go up there and
you brought all that up from civilization to one of the most remote places.
I would measure, like we'd be up there and say, this window's broken, and I would measure it, and then I'd go home and get a piece of plexiglass made for it and take it out the next time and install it. Wow. Or sometimes occasionally I would undo a whole window and take it home and work on it. We put the outhouse there. The little shitter there. I was tired of picking up toilet paper in the yard, so I went out there and dug a hole and sunk a 55-gallon drum and built a shelter over it for people to use, which is still there, I think.
Now, did the Death Valley Rangers appreciate what you were doing, or
at first when we went out there, it was under BLM control. So the Rangers came out. I remember the first time I was making windows for the living room, and the BLM guy was there looking at me like, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, they're trying to fix the place up a little bit, because we wanted it to be shown that it wasn't just a derelict cabin that you could trash. We wanted people to know that there's somebody here watching it and taking care of it."
Yeah.
Now, in 1994, they passed the Desert Protection Act, I believe it was, which put it inside the park, and then we knew that Park Service had a habit of demolishing old buildings that they didn't like because they didn't like old cabins. They wanted it to be natural, land. So we were fixing it up, and we were thinking, and plus the place is kind of notorious. Maybe they don't want it, being an attraction, which of course is the exact opposite. They loved it. But yeah, we ran into rangers out there, law enforcement, all law enforcement, no interpretive, but they knew who we were, and they appreciated it. And we were out there sometimes with the work crews, and they knew who we were. And I remember once I was up there doing some work, and a car came up, and it was I think he was a BLM ranger. Anyway, he was bringing his replacement up to show this person Barker Ranch, and I'm sure he said to her, "Oh, and occasionally, there are actually Manson family people out here." And then he pulls up, and there I am. So that was a kind of neat.
Well, that happened a lot, and that's what threw me into this whole case. A few years ago, when I came into the Fromy collection, that would throughout my childhood happen. These Manson references, people would matter of factly show up, throw that out there. We'd be at the gas station, somebody be new in town, somebody pull up the old story about, oh yeah, that's where the Manson girls used to bum for change over there, and blah blah. They were a scraggly lot. Everyone's got their little Manson story, or you go to the Foster's Freeze, and where they allegedly threw Charlie out. Blah, he pouted on the bus while the girls got his shake and his cheeseburger, and blah blah blah. I wasn't believing that, but I did.
I remember once we were going to go into Butte Valley to Warm Springs Canyon, and there had been some rain, and so we went into the park headquarters at Furnace Creek, and I said, "Okay, should we take the west side road, or is the east side road cleared?" He said, "You better take he said, "Where are you going?" "Butte Valley." He says, "You better take the west side road." And he says, "Oh," I said, "Okay." He says, "Are you going to go out Goler Wash?" And he said, "Yeah." And he says, "You're going to go to Barker Ranch?" I said, "Yeah, probably." He said, "Well, be careful if you do, because the Manson people still go out there." I said, I'll do that. I'll be watching. She's out in the car, actually.
You want to talk to her?
But that was the thing. Like, I didn't understand that. I'm growing up with Elf, who is Cappy's son. I can say if I'd ever met TJ's kids, because I just had met him a few times when he hung out with my next door neighbor when I was a kid. And it took me a long time to put that together. But I mean, my memories are very distinct. They're patchy, but I mainly just remember that he was very musky. He was real friendly. He was funny. He did the flipper thing with his teeth. I had a flipper. Everyone does it. You just can't help it. And he was just a real, like I say, a real engaging guy. And I'd never seen that before. And then a few years later, when I started hanging out with these bikers, that's the exact reason I was attracted to them. They smoked weed. They weren't drinkers. They weren't violent to people weaker than them. They treated their old ladies and their dogs good. And they were real nice to us as kids. So when people would throw that out there, they would say that, like, "Hey, when you're out in Trona, watch your step. Manson family still lives out there. You know that, right?" And the whole thing about fixing water lines, we used to do that all the time. We went out to Myers Ranch. I had friends who would go out there and help the Myers work on that same stuff. So you did all that? You restored all that?
At Barker's,
That's an incredible amount of work.
And George, did you guys have anything growing?
Yeah, we planted trees. We planted some cottonwood trees to replace. Actually, I think they're American elms. But anyway, yeah, we planted one of those that did.
So it's the ones that had the shade in the later photographs?
That did pretty well until somebody sawed it off. I watched it grow pretty high, and then somebody chopped it off. But yeah, we actually did have some gardens going out there. We experimented with tomatoes and beans, and down in the corral, we had water going down there, and it worked. They grew.
I could see tomatoes really going crazy. We had them in Inyokern, and boy, we would get some beautiful crops. I wasn't super into tomatoes, but I loved growing them.
Now, in 68 and 69, did the family have anything growing at any point? Like,
no, in 68 and 69, there were a lot more people out there than there were, after that, when they started closing down all the mining operations. There were a lot more miners in the area. There were places up at Willow Springs. And so they never really were able to get anything growing out there. No. Because I think they were out there from October to January, and then they didn't get out there until the following September,
And
and
at one
things were
point-
getting pretty hot then anyway, you know.
At one point, did you and Sandy have like a trellis going? It seemed like there was like an infrastructure when I was there that was just to, I guess, if you're standing on the porch of Barker Ranch looking out towards the hills to the right, there looked like there was like a little side area that might have been, I don't know, there's a lot of
I liked the
pipes and
porch.
stuff on the
Yeah.
ground
Yeah,
there.
yeah, no, we
Yeah,
didn't have anything. We
no.
didn't build anything like that. We
Yeah.
put up a bunch of walls where I went out there with a fellow and we spent 4 days putting up the walls of the old outbuildings, you know, and we cemented them up and, you know,
Restored them.
yeah, pretty
Wow,
much.
that's
so.
Those are in really
Because-
good shape
Because
even
we
at this
wanted to
point.
show, that, you know, people were looking after it. And that so they would, but you know, Park Service took it to heart, and they finished putting up the rest of the gate. I couldn't put up the cross beam. I put up the 2 uprights, and I had the cross beam lying there. And the
Mhm.
next time we came up, they had put it up.
Wow.
So, and
So there was a spirit of cooperation at one point.
we were staying there when they would come out and do work, and they knew us. George this, Blue that, you know, they were law enforcement rangers, and that slopped over into the, you know, maintenance people.
So I was over here itching earlier because I just couldn't believe you went from pen pal to at Barker Ranch with Blue. So you were telling the story, and I'm over here. I apologize, viewers, because I was like fuming and bubbling. And how long of a time was it from when you wrote her to when you were actually at Barker Ranch? That just is what a leap,
When I
people.
wrote to her,
Yeah.
oh, not long, it was 4 months or so, something like that.
She just, of all people, Sandra Good materializes in George Stimson's life. Incredibly intelligent, very intense, obviously very physically beautiful woman. Just wow, the intensity level. You'd been researching this since 75, you said?
Yeah. Well, 75. Yeah.
So you were very well versed in her
Mhm.
character and had well developed ideas about her probably before you ever wrote her.
I wrote her because she wanted tapes of Charlie's interviews, and she understood that. Actually, another fellow referred her to me so I could make her good copies of the tapes. And when I sent her the tapes, I said, by the way, here's my phone number. If you're ever interested, you know, call me. If you don't, that's fine too. And she called me.
It was just
So
a
we
real
we
natural.
started communicating back and forth. But
Wonderful. I always wondered about that because that's just incredible. Because when we first met Twilighters, I'd ask George a few questions because he so generously came and got a good look at the Fromy collection and just met with me because I was so overexcited and overwhelmed by all of these things coming together from my childhood and then from my research, and then to see George after researching for a couple of years and seeing all the television programs you'd been on and understanding your relationship with Blue had happened. That to me, I don't want to sound strange, but for a guy, that's pretty fairy tale. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you know,
you kind of jackpotted there, friend.
well, yeah, and you know, and you talk about Charlie and the ranch. There would be times when I would visit him at Corcoran when he was behind glass
Yeah.
and shoe in the morning, and that night I would be out at Barker Ranch
Yeah.
by myself, spending the night working on something. It was like whiplash. or
That's
something,
heady,
you know.
heady
In the morning, I'm
business.
talking to him. That evening, I'm out at Barker
Yeah.
Ranch.
And that golden hour
And
that just
nobody out
takes
there.
you somewhere beautiful.
Because you know, when we were going out there, it wasn't really super populated. The last years or so we went out there, we never stayed there because people were always coming in. Oh, let's look at the place. Can we come in? Can we come in? You can't say no. So we would stay up at Butte Valley or somewhere else and come over.
Was that a result of technology?
It was a result of GPS and everybody having a 4-wheel drive and
Got it.
coming out there. Because like I say, when I first started going out there, nobody had any of that stuff. So, but
It was only like the hardcore
yeah.
4-wheel drive
You
club guys,
had
the
to
Jeep
find it.
guys.
Yeah, you had to really find
And I recommend anybody that goes there, do not rely on GPS. the satellite coverage is not great. You need to take some topographical maps. It's very misleading.
Good.
It looks like when you see it from the
Very
side,
deadly.
when
It's
you
a
look
good
at
place to
it,
die. Seriously.
when you look at it from
The name is
the
not just
bird's
wrong.
eye view, it doesn't give you a good understanding of what the terrain is like. It seems like that valley is much bigger than it is, but in reality, at the intersection of where Goler Wash and Mangle Pass meet, there's actually a lot of trees that it's real easy to make a wrong turn and go the totally wrong direction and miss it.
Right.
So once you get into the valley and you're right there in front of Barker Ranch and Myers Ranch, it's pretty wide open space, but it's getting to that point.
Yeah, it's a narrow little place you have to go through, and it's easy to miss the turnoff.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then definitely going in through from the eastern route, don't go unless you have a serious four-wheel drive vehicle. I mean, when we did
you
it,
did on the motorcycle, George, that's some really cool,
That was in June too.
adventurous,
It
beautiful,
was June too.
dangerous,
I
neat
thought it was
riding.
crazy.
Yeah, how'd that feel? Was that just like, that must have been incredible.
Well, I had my days off from work. I said, well, I'm going out. I'm going to spend the week up at Barker Ranch. I go,
Cool.
It's June. Okay. Well, it's 110 degrees. Well, whatever. So, I got over.
And that's not bad up there. That's
was,
not bad. It could be 125 up there.
That was the only time I ever dropped my bike. And I didn't do it seriously, but I slid it a little bit on gravel.
Okay.
But I managed to get over. And I remember going over Mangle Pass and the sun was setting and I'm trying to dodge all the holes in the road and the sun's hitting the side view mirrors, blinding me.
Yeah.
So when I finally got over there, it was pretty good. And like I say, nobody there back then. You could be out there for days and not see anybody.
Have you ever stayed in either the cabin at Willow Springs or the geologist cabin?
Oh,
the Butte Valley?
Yeah.
Now, which do you prefer and how does that out there?
Russell Camp's very nice, but it's too big for one person or even two people because people want to stay there. And I haven't been there a while. I ended up liking Greater View Spring, Anderson's, because Stonehouse, everybody wants to stay there too.
Yeah.
So Anderson's, it has water. It's off to the side. And I stayed there for 4 weeks once by myself. I had a guy drop me off so I wouldn't be able to leave, see a picture of a hamburger in a magazine. So got to go.
Anvil Springs is nice too. There's a good water source, but there's no cabin to stay in.
You mean Willow Springs?
Oh, I'm sorry, Willow Springs. Yeah.
We used to camp down there. If we went out to Butte Valley and we could see the cabins were occupied, we'd go down to Willow Springs and then we would watch until they left, and then we would zip out and grab the cabin.
I try to explain to people that haven't been. You can see for so many miles. It's such a weird thing. Like you could literally have the binoculars and know, from all directions. Yeah, it's incredible.
Of course, but the whole thing with that is that I think it puts you in a very unique mindset. And that's part of this whole case and part of why this trail of Charlie Manson we were talking about with you took you on the coast. It took you in this valley, which is magical, Garden of the Gods. If y'all haven't been to Spawn Ranch, it is literally a mystical eyeful to behold. And then that puts you in a frame of mind. And the way the light hits those hills, especially at that same hour, it's just magical. And to think about those kids coming into freedom and feeling really excited in both these locations, it's again really easy to see how these heightened senses could have occurred and that normal actions that would be somehow beyond your psyche, such as murder, these things that occurred within certain people in the circle, could be overlooked in these pristine environments. It almost.
Well, plus Barker's is so far out there. You think I'm on the moon.
Yeah.
It's like, even when I lived in Furnace Creek, it was like being on a satellite.
Untouchable. You're in another.
Barker Ranch is so far.
It's not even a world. It's a universe.
Yeah. It's like 30 miles from the nearest paved road,
Yeah.
and then it's 30 miles to the nearest town, and that town doesn't have a traffic light, and it's really out there.
Everything
Yeah.
becomes
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
The scale
Yeah,
for these young people
yeah.
who've lived in homes,
Mhm.
in neighborhoods,
Mhm.
in towns,
Yeah.
in larger cities and metropolises. When you get out and have unlimited headspace, you can see 150 miles. You can see Telescope Peak right
Mhm.
there. You got Whitney over here. So you have the highest place in the United States. And then you also can see the lowest place in the United
Mhm.
States. Now, you spent a time, didn't you operate some sort of establishment there? Isn't there a
Yeah, I lived in Death Valley for 3 years. I needed a job, and I applied, and I said, "Are you hiring or not?" And they said, "Oh, well, we have a dishwasher." So I said, "That's fine. I'll be up there tomorrow." And I started
Cool.
working in a general store in Furnace Creek. I worked my way up from stock boy to a night manager, and then they promoted me to manage the store and gas station and stovepipe well. So I ran
Wow.
that for a year.
Stovepipe Wells is a really, really exciting place geologically. And also, it's a really vibrant, cool desert community. There's so many wonderful things to look at. The people that you do get to talk to, some genuine crazy characters,
Yeah.
just wonderful people. Now,
Mhm.
you must have fit right in there and just loved those people because they all have stories and
Yeah.
they all wound up in the desert
Yeah,
somehow.
but you don't. The great thing about it was you didn't have to hang out with people because people
Mhm.
let you do,
Well, yeah,
whatever
there's
you wanted to do. There was no pressure to. I'm kind of a lone wolf kind of character, so it suited me very well to just go out and take walks. I didn't drink, so I didn't go to the bar. I didn't spend. The only time I went to the bar was to see Charlie on Tom Schneider.
and what year was that again?
80 or
Yeah.
81.
So you were in the desert at
Yeah,
that time?
yeah.
So you
Yeah.
went into the bar there in
Cork
Stovepipe
Surf.
That's
Wells?
wild.
No, this was at Furnace Creek.
Okay, Furnace Creek. So you just amble in and you're
No,
like, well, the
no,
tonight show's going to be
no,
on.
everybody knew it was going to be, but they knew me, so they gave me a seat right in the front.
Wow.
Awesome. Oh my God, that is so
They knew I
cool.
was a fan.
I remember watching it at my grandparents' house. Everyone had gone to bed. We were in Texas, so the time was a little bit different. But yeah, I got to see that thing and I just couldn't believe the whole trip. And he's got a swastika tattoo on his fucking forehead. What the fuck?
I
And
liked what I saw.
it was so exciting. So that must have been a lot of fun. So
Mhm.
then what year was it that Blue came to?
That would have been 91, February of 91.
So you already
We
had
went
a
there.
deep
Yeah.
relationship and long history there in Death Valley, much longer than Blue ever had.
Who's that?
You.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then you got to,
Yeah.
by befriending Charles Manson, by being interested in this case with a open heart, you became intimate with these people. You went first to the physical locations,
Mhm.
and then that made you more of an expert than they were. But that's partly what drew you to the case and fascinated you. I find that it's so wonderful that your interest in the case served Sandra Blue good in such good stead that you were able to elevate her life and be the expert to help her experience the desert.
No,
That's incredible.
I just took her there. She experienced it on her own. But,
Sure.
I got to meet a lot of people, Capistrano,
Yeah.
Country Sue, TJ, of course.
Wow.
And intimately. I mean, I stayed at TJ's house more times than I can remember. We went on road trips together.
That was in Trona?
Yeah. We went to
Beautiful.
Barker Ranch together. We visited Charlie together. We drove up to Oregon together. We went out to Saline Valley together. I was over at TJ's house many
beautiful thing.
times.
Did you ever go to
Wow.
Myers Ranch with Catherine Gillies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a couple times. I met the Myers. I met Barbara Myers out
Mhm.
there, and Corky and Larry Harmon.
How are they?
Fine. They're very friendly, but we'd go out there sometimes, and somebody would have broken into Myers Ranch.
Yeah, please stay away from it. It's private property.
Yeah.
It's a no-no.
It's family owned.
Yeah.
Isn't it the last piece of kind of privately held
Yeah, it is.
property in
Right.
the monument?
Right.
They've taken really good care of it.
Please. And they're a good family. They're based in the area. They've been there for well over 100 years. If that's not enough to show proper respect, they'll get it the old-fashioned way.
And
Certainly.
the old ranch house had burned down anyway, so you're looking at new structures. I believe there's one original structure left at Myers Ranch.
Now, what about, have you ever been to Indian Ranch?
I've been there. I haven't poked around too much.
Yeah,
I've
so
just driven up there.
We're going to plant. We know the owner of it, and we're going to get out there here real soon. So we'd love to maybe go along with you if that's possible.
Yeah, we'd like to get out there with you. I'm getting the new fresh motor in the Land Cruiser because it had a little rear. It was a beautiful car. They run forever, but it had a rear seal leak because it had been sitting so long, and I just couldn't, in good conscience, Twilighters, take an oil leaking vehicle into the monument. I'm just not going to do it. It's like riding a dirt bike without a spark arrestor. It's just crazy. So I hope to do that with you. Another thing I'm hoping is to work with some of the families and the people that have been out there to manage some of this tourism that's kind of happening and keep it more respectful. Like, I'm hoping the people there at Ballarat, the Barkers, will be able to kind of control some of it and at least do okay with it instead of being put upon and repairing damage and losing money. Hopefully the store can be a positive income and help them out a little bit.
I still consider it the Wild West. I mean, there's stuff going on out there. Last time I was there, I heard gunshots. There was a meth lab going there at that cabin in Goler Wash. And I don't think it's the Newman cabin. It's the one closer to where the mine is.
Oh, up at the mine.
Lotus Mine. Yeah. There's some wild stuff going on there. So be careful. I've heard of, cartels out there growing marijuana. There was a major mudslide last year that killed some cartel members. And
don't go there.
Really.
Stay away.
So be careful. Yes.
Well, there's some places to stay away from. Death Valley, because guess what? It's been documented. It's deteriorated. Leave it alone. It's probably not safe. So just, if you want to go out there, easiest way, shoot through Trona. Go ahead. Hit the Barker family itself out there at the Ballarat store. Call it good. Grab a souvenir cup. Head on home where it's safe, because it really is Death Valley. We've known a lot of people perished over the years trying to go up Goler, trying to come through Mangle. There's a lot of different ways to die up there, and it's just a foolish thing. Other things are, hey, the Independence Museum there. It's really about Shoshone basketry. When you show up talking Manson, they're not always that into it. I've digitized their files. I can make them available to you, and I've made them available to them because I don't think they really dig it that much in that particular venue. But I'm hoping that some of these places will see the value and manage this Manson tourism, because it's a trail of not just murder mystery. These are beautiful locations, Independence.
Right. And there are people trying to get out from under the city and the confusion. The Park Service history they did at Barker Ranch was very reasonable in the way they treated Charlie and his friends, and how they referred to them as just people who, they weren't coming out here to look for a hideout. They were just like many other people who have come to the desert over the years. They wanted to get out from the confusion in the city and live a life closer to the land.
It's pretty hard to not immediately be in a completely different mindset when the most prominent sensory thing I was taking anyways, it was always the wind. It was always the you would hear it auditory, you felt it, you would see its effect on everything. And when have these children ever experienced that? It was just in completely stark, wild environment, almost lunar. And then to move around so much at night, and I think they were sleeping a lot in those washes kind of below the property, as I read.
Yeah, all over. But you talk about the moonlight out there. I remember one night, Blue and I went out there, and it was a full moon. We drove up, we turned the headlights off and drove up Goler Wash without headlights because you didn't need them.
I've done that many a times out there wheeling as a kid. I love that feeling. It's just everything is bathed. It looks like a Western movie where they just put the blue filter on. day shoot it.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, but this would never happen. And then when you're out there, and then just the way the stars explode in the night, you have no idea.
And then when we got to the ranch that time, there were people there, and they were like freaked out that somebody was driving up with no headlights, and you could see them scattering.
Yeah.
I think they were I think they were cops, but you could, when you pull up, you could see them kind of like running away from the cabin and scattering. And the guy came out and challenged him, "What are you doing here?" "Oh, well, I guess we're gonna go somewhere else." But they were not happy to have somebody driving up with no headlights at night.
Well, it's a lot more civil than being blinded with a set of KC bright lights.
Yeah.
Now,
I would think.
George, have you done any like hiking around there? Have you looked at for any of the like lookout spots where Clem might have been up in the
Caches and
hills
stuff.
or kind of stuff?
You know, I've seen the bunker across the way. Occasionally, Charlie would say, "Go up to the first wash behind Myers Ranch and go see if anything's there." And we would always check it out. But we hiked
Yeah.
all over the place. We would hike from the ranch down to the bottom of the wash and back during the day,
Mhm.
or we'd hike up to Butte Valley and back during the day, a
Mhm.
12-mile round trip walk. And you know, you just take it easy and do it. And but as far as we left some caches there, one that was found recently. They made a big YouTube video.
I
out
saw
of
that.
I got in contact with the guy.
That's pretty
and
funny.
American Eagle.
I got in contact with the guy. And
He was all
they were all
about those.
disappointed with the dates of the clothing.
He was all about those American Eagle
Yeah.
bridges. I saw that. I was like, come on, you guys.
And then there's Wonder Hussy out there digging in holes.
Getting Barbara Hoyt's chonies.
Yeah.
Boy, she dove in one of these things and pulled out the she was rank and skid marked panties. And she's like, yeah.
No, I don't remember that.
Oh my goodness, she's hilarious. We hope Sarah comes and joins us because we're going to share some information with her because she goes out to Barker Ranch and she'll be out in her beloved Toyota. She's actually way ahead of us. I think we three could use some Toyota sponsorships. And she's been getting them off this lot.
She does.
Each year, man, they love the Huss. We need to get down with their methodology. So we're hoping
We're gonna get her a copy of George's book though,
Yep.
because we need to get her off that Bugliosi Helter
Yeah,
Skelter narrative.
no love on the
Yeah.
Helter Skelter. And so we're going to do some adjacent programming and hopefully be able to ride the pony that is the Wonder Hussy. So the other things that came out there in terms of guests and people, I think it's funny that they were like, who are you? Stay away. Turn your headlights on. Go away.
Mhm.
But who are some of the other people who came out of note that you would remember that were like, what the hell? Or just funny things?
Well, there were odd things that happened. I remember once we were at Barker Ranch and we could hear people went over to Myers Ranch and we heard this thump. And what are they doing over there? So we got up on a hill where we could see over there, and they were outside the gate, like shot putting rocks over the gate, and they were landing in the front yard. And I said, "This is kind of weird. These people are acting kind of strangely." So when they started to come out, I said, "Why don't you go back up the wash or something, and I'll handle this." But they just waved on the way out. But
Yeah.
occasionally you'd have weird behavior like that, and sometimes people would come around with guns, and you'd say, you don't really need a gun here. It's a national park, and they just feel like they have to have a gun.
Highly illegal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, the national
not the
monument.
place to argue with anybody.
Yeah.
certainly.
Especially when they're the one with the gun who's feeling pretty emasculated by
Yeah.
the fact they have a gun.
Yeah.
There's always going to be weirdos. I found one of those oil cans out there that somebody made some kind of, occultish stuff on the bottom, which is ridiculous because that had nothing to do with the family, but
Well, these people that, like I say, when we drove up with the headlights, we waited for them to leave, and finally they left. And they had left copies of Helter Skelter, and they had
Mhm.
shot jackrabbits and hung them in the trees and stuff. And it
Yeah.
was, just kind of trashed the place. So we were
Very
we were-
distasteful.
we were able to clean it up because the next people that came up were this nice old couple. So I hope they didn't have to see all these pictures of bodies and stuff on the mantelpiece. And we used to go up there and like erase any Charlie graffiti or anything like that, and just try to keep it a neutral place. No, just a nice place, not a Manson place, just a nice place to be.
we're going to close out this episode. But real quick, I just want to ask you, what were your thoughts? Did you read Desert Shadows?
Oh yeah.
Did you enjoy that book?
Oh, you were
Yeah.
looking for that?
Yeah, I was
one?
looking for
Oh,
it.
it's right here.
Yeah,
I really liked it
I
too.
really
I'll
liked it.
even get up because we collectively love this
Yeah.
book so much.
It's in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, I'm
That's
not crazy about the guy's
Arkansas.
point of view.
Sure.
But as far as what he says about the geography and the location of everything, I can imagine
Yeah.
where all the stuff happened. When they say the shovel fell off the back of the Toyota and on the way up to Hunter Mountain,
Great.
I know where that road is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's
a-
an incredible,
Yeah.
incredible book.
Yeah.
We're hoping to eventually be able to do a little store where people can just come and impulse buy the books instead of waiting for them to show up on eBay, which sometimes they never really do. But I think this, Death to Pigs, a few others that are really worth having the original copies of, just because they're really special
Go
books
to
physically.
aidbooks.com. Do you ever go there?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay, yeah,
And
I'll
I
do-
recommend that for all your book needs, but definitely please find George. We're going to have him back again real soon. We have a million questions about his past and why
I'll answer some of them.
he's been so kind to us as just a guy from Ohio with his life, because a lot of people like won't understand the gratitude we've been expressing to you. It's like, well, why are you just there kissing George Stimson's ass?
Because
It's
he'll let you.
yeah, and it's so smooth and supple and utterly kissable. What it is, I've done these projects for years. I understand the personal time involved, the sacrifice of just being able to do something else. And nope, got to get to this thing, got to get the facts right, got to make it happen. And that's much appreciated because people's lives are in the balance.
Right.
And when friends of mine say things like, well, 85% of what you read about me on the internet is untrue, I, like you, feel the call to step up and try to make this right, not just for us, but for history, much like those trees that you planted at Barker Ranch, whose shade you didn't get to enjoy. So, George, that's why we love you. Things like that. Much appreciated, friend.
Indeed.
We'll see you,
Thank you.
Twilighters, next time around. Bless you all, and thank you again for joining us. Please support. Goodbye, Helter Skelter.